Charles Sherwood Stratton was born January 4th, 1838 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. You probably don't know him by that name. If you know him at all, you probably know him under his stage name, General Tom Thumb. General Tom Thumb has intrigued me for decades now. I mean, a photograph of him hangs up over my desk. He led a really fascinating and rich life, and I'm just going to touch on some of the details of that. I was going to write a song about him, or maybe do a little puppet show, or something. But this time I wanted to find some actual, real, tangible evidence of him. He lived right here in Connecticut. There is a Barnum Museum, but when I filmed this it was closed for repairs, and so I decided to do this without the help of any museums. I mean, what's the fun of me just going to a museum and filming something there and reading the display in front of it? So here I went, looking for Charles Stratton, or as I like to think of him, Charlie. Charles Sherwood Stratton was a little guy. Charles Stratton was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is right down the road from me. By the time he was 4.5 years old, he was only 25 inches tall and weighed 15 pounds. Charlie had stopped growing at 5 months old. This is the location of the house where Charles Stratton grew up. It isn't there anymore. Okay, this is the location of the house that Tom Thumb grew up in. Right here. And he was born in the house next door to it, which I'm guessing is a building there, or it was in there, or maybe it was next to it right here, but it was right about there, right behind the telephone pole that the house was. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. At the time of his youth, this was the outskirts of Bridgeport, with open land and forest in the area. Now this was some municipal building in a slightly sketchy neighborhood. In November of 1842, he was introduced through family friend Philo F. Barnum to Philo's half-brother, Phineas Taylor Barnum. Both of Charlie's parents, Sherwood and Cynthia Stratton, were concerned about the sort of life that Charlie might lead in a sideshow. But they were also really concerned about what kind of life he might lead outside of show business. So they agreed and introduced Charlie to P.T. Barnum. Barnum was immediately charmed by the boy, and long story shortened slightly, Charles Sherwood Stratton became General Tom Thumb and moved to P.T. Barnum's American Museum in New York City with his mother, Cynthia, to watch over him. General Tom Thumb was hidden in New York until his introduction. Barnum had his mother dress him in baby clothes and carry him around as a baby. This entirely infuriated Charlie, but he, agreed. This was so as not to prematurely reveal him to the public. Because really, only your mom can prevent premature revelation. When General Tom Thumb was to be introduced to the public, Barnum had made 2 identical suits, one for himself and one for Tom Thumb, predating Mini-Me by over a century. They marched right into the home of newspaper mogul Colonel James Watson Webb, and Barnum placed Tom Thumb right on the dinner table. He immediately charmed the whole family, and Colonel Webb did exactly what Barnum hoped he'd do, which is publish an article, quite favorably reviewing Barnum's new star. Barnum brought Charlie to visit other newspaper men, and soon everyone was anxious to get a glimpse of General Tom Thumb. And they could. For 25 cents, half price for children, they could go into Barnum's American Museum and see him. Of course, Barnum had lied a little bit about Charlie's age, setting him at 11 years old instead of 5 years old. Of course, when this came out many, many years later, no one really seemed to mind. General Tom Thumb was a sensation. Barnum took him on a tour of Europe. He met Queen Isabella of Spain. He met Queen Victoria, Queen Victoria's dog attacked him, leaving Charlie to defend himself only with a walking stick. Thankfully, the Queen was amused. And so here we are at the site of Tom Thumb's mansion that he built for his parents and family that he lived in. He built this when he was 9 years old. Unfortunately, it's been knocked down now, and this is what we have. We have a Walgreens and a Chase Bank on the land that it used to be. So this is the location of the Thumb mansion. As I drove around Bridgeport in the area where Charlie had lived, I didn't see much sign of him. There were little clues about him, however, that maybe he hadn't been altogether forgotten. I could go into detail about how he met his wife, or some of his other adventures, but I'd like to save that for another time, because finally, I found some tangible evidence of Charlie.
Continue 0.2 miles, then turn right on alley.
And this is where Charles Stratton is buried. General Tom Thumb is buried here. The statue atop this pillar is life-size. There's his father, Sherwood Stratton, his mother, Cynthia Stratton, and there he is, Charles S. Stratton. Died July 15th, 1883. I guess this is where it ends. Why does General Tom Thumb fascinate me? I've barely touched on his life. He traveled throughout the world, had countless adventures. General Tom Thumb entertained more people than anyone else, ever, until television came along. And yet today, hardly anyone seems to know who he was.